Just like many other CSS properties, the border property is actually the shorthand for many individual properties. Let's take a look at each one. As you can see here, we have the same basic page as always with our div in the center, and switching over to our text editor, we have the same markup that we've been using, and here's the same CSS to bootstrap the page, and here is where we're going to be doing our styling. Now we have a background color applied, but I'm just going to delete that first so that you can more clearly see our borders. The first property I'm going to show you is called border style. With border style, we can use several different keywords to define the aesthetic quality of the line that's used. So let's try it out. I'll type border-style and give it a value of solid. And when I switch back to the browser and refresh, you can see that our background color has disappeared and we now have this nice solid line all the way around. The most common keyword used is solid, which draws a completely solid line with no breaks. A single border style property is also the minimum amount of border styling required to draw a border. If you use any of the other individual properties, it must be paired with the border style property in order for it to work. Now, we're going to try all the other border styles in just a second, but first, let's learn about border width so that we can see these borders more clearly. Using the border width property, you can control the thickness of the border. So let's try that out. So we'll type border width, and we'll give it a value of about 5 pixels. And when I switch over to the browser and refresh, you can see that our border is now just a little bit thicker than it was before. Let's increase the border width so that we can clearly see what all the other border styles look like. I'll switch back to the text editor and we'll change this from 5 to 10 pixels, and I'll switch back to the browser and refresh, and as you can see, our border is now 10 pixels thick. One important thing to note here is that adding width to a border increases the amount of space that the element takes up in the same way that adding margin or padding does. When calculating the actual width of an element on a page, you need to include the width of the element plus padding, border, and margin. Now, in addition to border width, we need to adjust the color of our borders in order to try all the different styles. To do that, we'll use the border color property. So switching back to the text editor, we'll skip down to the next line and type border-color, and we'll give it that same orange color that we've been using. So when I switch back and refresh, you can see that our border is now orange. The border color property allows you to change the color of your border. It accepts a single color value, and you can use color keywords, the RGB function, or hexadecimal color as I've done here. Now finally we can get to the fun part. There are lots of different border styles beyond the solid style, so let's try them out right now. So I'll change solid to dotted, and we'll switch over and refresh. And as you can see here, the dotted style draws a dotted line. From a design perspective, this is good to use if you want to convey a border, but you want it to be a bit more subtle. Now, next up is dashed. So let's try that out. The dashed style creates more of a perforated looking line as opposed to the dotted style. This particular style might be useful if you want to make something look like it should be cut out, like a voucher or a coupon. Let's try another. We'll change dashed to double and refresh. As you can see, the double border style gives the appearance of there being 2 borders instead of 1. You must have a border width of at least 3 pixels in order for the styling to work. Next up is groove. So we'll change double to groove, and switching back over to our browser, the groove style is the first of 4 styles that rely on the border color. Without a border color, there would just be some gray areas instead of a nice full border like you see here. Another style that relies on color is the ridge style. So we'll switch back over to the text editor and change groove to ridge and refresh our browser. And as you can see, the ridge looks just like the groove style but inverted. Next is inset and outset. So we'll change ridge to inset, and switching over to our browser, You can see that the inset style gives the appearance of the page element being sunken into the page and assumes a light source coming from the upper left. Now let's try outset. We'll change inset to outset and refresh the browser. And as you can see, the outset style does just the opposite, assuming the light source is coming from the upper left, and the page element appears to be bulging outwards. Now that we've learned about all of these different properties, let's bring them all together in the consolidated border property. So we'll delete everything that we have here and just change that to border, and we'll give it about 10 pixels, a solid style, and we'll give it the same orange color. So when we switch back and refresh, you can see that we've made the same looking border using just a single property. Now these values can go in any order, but here I've used border width, border style, and finally border color. Now what if we wanted a border on the left side of our element? We would need to change the border property to read border left. So when I switch over to the browser and refresh, you can see that our element now just has a border on the left side. We could even set a border and then change just one of the sides to be a different color, width, or style. So let's try that out. We'll change border left back to just border, and then we'll try border bottom, and we'll give it 30 pixels, a dashed style, and a color of black. So when we switch back to the browser and refresh, there you have it. As you've just seen, we can use borders to create a huge variety of page stylings. In the next video, we'll learn about a new way to position our page elements.